As more international delegations and officials take trips to Xinjiang to see the region for themselves, it's becoming clearer that many Western politicians and media have deliberately overlooked the economic, social and cultural rights Chinese ethnic minorities enjoy in the region. The first-hand experience in Xinjiang among foreign diplomats have shed new light on the ongoing topic. Welcome to this special edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin, coming to you from Beijing. I have three diplomats to talk about the Xinjiang they know and what's been missing in many Western media reports. I'm honored to be joined by Moin-ul Haq, Pakistani ambassador to China since 2020, Fariz Mehdawi, Palestinian ambassador to China since 2016, and Dr. Imad Mustafa, Syrian ambassador to China since 2012. Ambassadors, thank you so much and welcome to The Point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ambassador Haq, I know you just came back from a trip to Xinjiang, so memories must be very fresh. Tell us a bit about this trip. How long did you go? Where did you go?
Thank you, Liu Xin, for having us on The Point. Yes, I visited with among other diplomatic colleagues at the end of the March, about 4 or 5 days. It was a memorable trip. It was an experience of lifetime. We visited the cities of Urumqi, Kashgar, and Aksu. We visited many development projects, visited many institutions, met local people, visited religious places. So one could see the miraculous transformation that has taken place in this region, beautiful region. The focus on cultural, religious harmony, and most importantly for me, what is important was that everything which was taking place was people-centric.
What do you mean by that, people-centric?
I mean, if you look at the development work or setting up of industries, focus on agriculture, development projects like drinking water, forestation, these were all to provide employment, poverty alleviation, much focus on education and health. So this is all about people. So that's why I say that's the policy of the Chinese government and the local government was focused on this. And in fact, I think the 70% of the local budget is spent on education, on health, on creating jobs.
Ambassador Mehdawi, you were there also, but last year, end of last year, I understand. Tell us a bit about your trip. Who was the organizer? How long did it last? And where did you go mostly?
Well, you see, we had been invited as a group of the Arab ambassadors, so most of us had gone. I think we were 19 together. It was around 1 week, but we traveled 3 places, and it was well organized by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, actually. And we have been accompanied by a special envoy who was with us all the time, and it was planned in such a way that we could have an overall spectrum over the socio-economic and also meeting with government people to discuss actually what's happening over there and try to find first-hand, information about what's happening. It was quite really enriching for me as information in particular, because I visited the region 4 years ago during 2016 while I was flying to Azerbaijan. I was stopping over Urumqi, and there I had some idea. And I can tell you what happened in the last 4 years in comparison to what I had seen. It's really incredible. I mean, in the term of the infrastructure, the quality of life, and I can tell you frankly, even when you look at the people, you see how much happy they are compared. So there is something happening. There is a huge work is happening in the region. For example, I was visiting in Aksu some of the houses, which they are newly built actually, and they look like villas in a way. I thought this is really for peasants, quite impressive. And the man was hosting us in his house, and they have those kind of traditions which they insist too much on
Yes,
the guests.
they're very hospitable.
Very hospitable, and they would, they will push you more than one time.
If you just walk in their home when they're eating, they say, come and join us, whether or not you're
They
invited.
will tell you you should eat, and you feel, just to show the generosity, and they are very generous.
Yeah. Ambassador Mustafa, let me ask you, I understand you haven't been to Xinjiang, but you have been in China since 2012. What happened? How come you haven't made the trip yet?
I'm just being unfortunate, but I have to go there. My colleague ambassadors who've been there told me impressive things about Xinjiang, and I believe sooner rather than later I will be there visiting Xinjiang.
How do you find out your information about Xinjiang then?
Well, there are, as you know, two sides to the story. The true story and how the Western powers present this story to the world media. And because I am so much trained and so have practiced a lot regarding the misinformation and the disinformation that the Western media propagate non-stop through its history, I am used to checking the facts and verifying whatever they say, and also I listen to the story as it comes from here, from China, from my fellow ambassadors, my colleagues who visited Xinjiang, from also some Xinjiang people that I happen to know who live here in Beijing, and from my colleagues at the Chinese academies and universities who tell me a very different story. And I think any person with a pinch of salt in his brain would understand how things are being distorted regarding the Western narrative about Xinjiang.
Some people would say, having heard what you said, they would say, look, you are only there for a few days and these trips are arranged. The people are already told probably what to say, what to tell to the foreign guests, so they might not be truly telling what they think, what they believe. Ambassadors, how do you feel that although the trip was short, although you were shown places, you were able still to get a glimpse of at least what people really feel like?
Absolutely. I think, of course, the visit is organized, and it has to be organized. There's so many ambassadors and diplomats are going. But you cannot hide the pulse of the society. You cannot hide the happiness and the contentment of the people.
Likewise, if people are not happy.
You can observe that, and we saw that vitality and vibrancy of the people and of the cities while visiting there, even going on buses, on tours also. It was really evident. And that's the special thing about Xinjiang, as I would say that it's a normal region. People are living like normal lives. They have families, they are sending their children to schools, they have jobs. Hustle bustle in the streets, tourists are there, shops are filled with products, restaurants are filled. A very normal region. I didn't see anything which you read in media, those distorted facts. Seeing is believing.
Ambassador Mehdawi?
So this is a staged visit that in which it has been well prepared so that to give us a very good impression. This is what they say.
Some people would say that.
Well, I mean, one could take this. How about us? I mean, we don't have any experience to find out. I mean, we have been maneuvered to the extent that we look really so much naive that we can take and buy anything, or we are part from the conspiracy that we testify something against what we had seen. I think this is really not respectful, this kind of opinion, talking about, let them come and see, by the way, why they don't come and check by themselves. I was asking this question to the local authorities, and they said, anybody's welcome. Actually, the OIC had sent many delegations, and most of the journalists here, they are very well invited, like yourself. You have been there and you have checked the place. I mean, is there something to hide here? And why China has to hide anyway? It's very open, country. There is nothing. We've been checking in the mosque during night, any mosque of our choice, and it had been well attended. I talked to the imam, who is the son of a previous imam. And we were watching the people who were praying with us, and we were praying at the same time. Is this also well staged in advance or what? I mean, this needs really a very creative mind to think this way along conspiracy. There is no conspiracy here. There is facts here. The fact of the matter is is China is rising and developing everywhere, including Xinjiang. Some people are not happy about that. They would like to stop the rise of China by any means. There is something also, it seems to be ideological about it, because the liberal democracy system is the best one which can fit for all. Any other system seems to be not good. So if a socialism with Chinese crust is working, it's not very good news, because it seems the other system is failing. So I think I can tell very safely for people who suggest those. There is geopolitics, of course, in that. There is also some sort of envy. There is also a challenge about which model is working better.
And we had seen
this year, even with the COVID-19, who had done better in the exam. It's not only about living in Xinjiang or anywhere, overall China. We talk about 90,000 cases, while they are talking about, 25 million cases with 500,000 deaths and the others. So I think it's not about Xinjiang. It's not about human rights. It's not about all these things. It's about a geopolitical challenge with China.
Still, let's talk about how they managed to achieve to come this way in Xinjiang, because it has been, as has been documented, has been shown to the public. There's been thousands of terrorist attacks since the 1990s, and the July 5th terrorist attack was extremely bad. That's why very serious, very important measures were taken to combat terrorism and separatism and extremism. So when you were there, ambassadors, did you ask the people, did you find out exactly what measures were taken to bring things the way they are, so that people are indeed peaceful and happy and able to focus on their lives instead of being afraid anymore?
Yes, you are right. The region has suffered with this triple menace of separatism, extremism and terrorism, and we can relate to their sufferings and pain, because we in Pakistan also suffered for the last many decades this triple menace in our country, losing thousands and thousands of innocent lives, destruction to public property, and of course the peace was disturbed, the development process was affected. The same thing happened in Xinjiang. So this is not easy for any government to tackle with such challenges. But I would say that Chinese government took two things. I think the one was to, of course, eradicating with force. That has to be done. There are hardcore people, terrorists, who have to be tackled with force. And second was development. I think that the path that the Chinese government took was really had changed the landscape of the people, and realized them that they were on the wrong path. Because we met, as Ambassador of Palestine was saying, that we were able to meet families, local families. We went to a family. I was really impressed by the gentleman who had been an extremist, who admitted that. He said that I was on a wrong path. And then he was, of course, was given this training, and he was taught about constitution, law, how to be a responsible citizen. And now he's living a very peaceful life with his family, very proud. He has a very decent job. His house was, of course, subsidized, a beautiful house in a village where there were 5,000 of such houses and so many families living. And his children now are studying.
You can't hide that.
You can't hide that.
Yeah.
I mean, as you mentioned, he was so hospitable, so happy to receive us in his house. And his children are studying in very good universities, and he has hopes and aspirations for the children. He wants one to become a doctor, one a lawyer, one to go to he has 3 kids, one to go to join police service. So there he has those aspirations. And that was, I think, what the Chinese government have done while facing these challenges and helping people to come back to life and be a responsible citizen of the society.
Ambassador Mustafa, your country also suffered very terribly because of terrorism. How do you look at the way how China has tried to handle, to prevent especially terrorism?
Look, China has suffered from certain terrorist elements coming from the Xinjiang province. And now it's doing, as my colleague ambassadors have said, a fantastic job in addressing this issue. Fighting terrorism on the one hand and building the Xinjiang economy and society on sound and healthy basis on the other hand. No other country in the world has suffered from exactly those terrorist groups coming from Xinjiang as Syria has suffered. In the past 10 years, at least 5,000 to 6,000 Xinjiang fighters came to Syria to fight against the Syrian people and the Syrian government. That was far beyond what one can expect. We are not enemies to the Xinjiang people, of course. Actually, we have great traditions and cultural relations with them. Those were elements that were brainwashed to become extreme terrorists, radicals. And they wreaked havoc in China, and they wreaked extremely far more havoc in Syria. And because we suffered from these groups, we, more than any other country in the world, understand and support the Chinese government's efforts to address the issue of radicalism and extremism in the Xinjiang province. What China is doing is the right thing. China, had America suffered from these guys, they would have done what they would have done in Afghanistan and other places. They would have gone and carpet bombed the Xinjiang province, if America had suffered from these people. But Chinese government, with its wisdom and with its right approach to the issues, addressed the core issue. It's about development. It's about human growth, human development in the Xinjiang province. What China is doing in the Xinjiang province is 180 degrees in contrast to what America might have done if America had suffered from those groups. We have seen the reaction of America in Afghanistan, and we have even seen the fabrications and lies and myth of America towards Iraq that they used as a pretext to invade and destroy Iraq. What did the Chinese government do when it faced some terrorist attacks from the Xinjiang province? It went to the core issues. How to develop the society and how to prevent the people there from falling prey to the propaganda of the radical extremism in the Xinjiang province. So kudos to China and to the approach that China has taken in addressing this extremely important issue.
Well, China has still a lot of work to do because this is still a volatile situation, I would say. But 44 months, I was told, they haven't had any terrorist attacks. But in order to have long-term peace and security, still a lot has to be done. Ambassador Merdawi, from your understanding to China's way of fighting terrorism and what you observed on the ground, what are your thoughts? How do you think China came to realize this, at least temporary peace?
What I had seen that the approach of the government actually is focusing into addressing the security side by, of course, intelligence and all other means, like every other country. And the other side of it is actually systematically into offering development. And that's really where, the poverty produced that type of terrorism. When you are in despair, when you have hopelessness and all these type of things, that might arise.
Education.
I think this part has been well addressed. I had seen the development, the growth, the employment, the income, the standard of living is quite clear for anybody. The third part, which we say, opening up the minds and the people. And I had seen very positive really in their approach. I mean, opening up. And in the cultural sense, the cultural activities there is going almost every day.
What about the relationship between different ethnic groups? Because one of the complexity of Xinjiang is that it's a place where different culture, different beliefs, different customs merge. And it has been an issue of, how to unite different ethnic groups. Where you were there, Ambassador Haq, for instance, did you pay attention to whether people from different ethnic groups were able to live side by side, and those from the ethnic minority groups were able to preserve their culture, their customs, and coexist with their Han Chinese counterparts?
Exactly. I think the one thing which struck me during my visit, and of course before going there, reading about the place, is diversity. Diversity of its landscapes and diversity of its people, and the harmony. You're very right. I think Xinjiang is a mosaic of 50 plus ethnic minorities which exist in China, and they all exist in Xinjiang also, in a very peaceful and harmonious manner. We saw that during our trip to various places. We went to the International Grand Bazaar, where all these different ethnic minorities have their cultural exhibits. They have restaurants.
That hat,
of course.
That hat was
That
from
hat
the
was there, that duff was there.
Yeah.
And the food.
Take it if you want, Ambassador
This is
Merdawi.
beautiful, yeah.
That's from the International Bazaar.
International Bazaar.
It has, fake braids.
Oh,
It's for women, of course.
Yeah, so
There is some for men, actually. We
There
bought
are
two of
as
them
well.
from the international.
Take a look if
bazaar.
you want. Take it up.
culture was like this
Yeah.
hat. The culture is very diverse and
Oh, yeah,
colorful.
it is.
Dances, music, language. And these are preserved. In fact, if I may mention you, during one of the presentation, we were told that there are more than 300 listing of local intangible cultural heritage.
Yes.
At the national level, there is more than 100. This attention to cultural heritage, which has been given to the province of Xinjiang, is very impressive.
The mosques are really something.
The mosque.
Yeah, in Oramchi in particular, we were living in a hotel, and I can go to the veranda and check. Wherever you look, there are mosques. In one crossing, there is 5 mosques actually in the same neighborhood. I mean, too much. I mean, in a sense, And I was
Too much in a
asking about
sense.
no, too many actually.
Too many in a sense.
The average I had learned, the average of mosques, if you have to calculate it all, it's something like 2,000 inhabitants for one mosque. This ratio, we don't have it even in our country. It's not available anywhere. Of course, those mosques had been built a long time ago, which have been very well maintained. We had seen even some mosques equipped with LEDs and air conditioning, and even when you go inside the mosque, you will find those protective, stuff, especially with COVID.
Yes.
Well carpeted, actually, well served. And when we were asking actually the imams, they rarely have any complaints about that it's accessible the whole day and night, actually. Some of them are actually modern also. We had been visiting some mosques which they are newly built, actually, during the last 4 or 5 years.
Especially if you remember, if you have been to this Islamic center in Urumqi, which was built very recently, and where I think you went and many students were studying Quran and Hadith.
Yes.
The mosque next to it is a beautiful mosque.
This is very big complex, actually.
Very big complex.
Huge. It looks, I thought it's university, actually, at the beginning, because it is huge, really, and it will, it's also, it runs from primary up to the college.
Yeah.
A religious learning
Yes.
institution.
And by the way, since you were asking about the mosaic of the society, they are all actually coming from different ethnic groups. They are not all Uyghur.
Yeah.
Some of
They're
them
not
are
all
Tajik,
Uyghur.
some of them are Uzbek,
Yeah.
and some of them actually, well, I don't know by face, but you can see, I mean, the composition of the class is reflective of many ethnic groups. It's not all Uyghur.
Yeah. This is also my impression after me personally. I visited the Xinjiang. Actually, I just came back, but the contrast is so stark. I mean, if you read international media reports or Western media reports, it's completely different picture than if you hear our conversation or if you go there or if you read Chinese media. It's like 2 different places you're talking about. I wonder, Ambassador Mustafa, exactly what's going on.
Let's look at the issues as they really are. The issues have nothing to do with Xinjiang. It has to do with the rabid media campaign in the West against China, demonizing China. China is bad. Whatever China does, it's bad. Whatever you try to tell them, look, it's not the case, stop what you are saying about Xinjiang, Stop what you are saying about Hong Kong. Stop what you are saying about a very long list of things. They don't care. They don't want to know. It's not about the reality. It's about their perception of the reality and how they would like to portray it to the world, to their own audience. Ambassador Mahdawi has touched on it. The success of China is unbearable to the Western powers. For ages, for decades, they were claiming that the only model that is successful and works in the world is their model of governance, of a political system.
So the question is, what can we do? I mean, from the Chinese perspective, from Xinjiang's perspective, what to do?
Continue what you are doing. Don't listen to them. Move forward. Continue building and developing their infrastructure. Continue building and developing the human being there. As the ambassadors, my colleagues have said, it's centered on the human being in Xinjiang. And whether we are comfortable with this or not, you have to accept that the West will never say the truth about what's going on in Xinjiang.
Ambassador Haq, what's your advice, let's say, having seen Xinjiang, having been in China?
I agree with Ambassador Imad that China has to stay the course, continue this development path, continue opening up, continue to reform, continue your people-centric approach. Honestly, Xinjiang is not an issue. It's a beautiful, ancient land of diverse people who feel, who have hopes, who have inspirations. So don't look at Xinjiang as an issue. Don't be defensive, don't be reactionary.
Don't be defensive.
Yeah. Don't be defensive. Ambassador Mahdawi?
Well, I mean, the ambassador had covered almost everything. What I can say only, well, history did not end. I mean, this is what Mr. Fukuyama was trying to say. It seems the history is still open. And there are also room for success stories, not only the liberal democracy, not only the West. As their Excellency said, stay the course.
Okay.
There is good work happening over. China is not doing it to please, by the way, anybody except the Chinese themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the most important part.
Yes. Finally, I brought this from Xinjiang. It's a traditional instrument. It's on sale. I thought
this
it was
is an Arabic, by the way.
It's Arabic? Yeah. I don't know how to do this.
What do you mean?
Does anybody know how to do this?
I think it's called daf. What do you call it in your
Durbaki.
Durbaki. Yeah, in Pakistan we call it daf. I think in Xinjiang it's also
And daf also.
It's a Pakistani.
This is made of leather, by the way.
It is.
This one.
Do you know how to play it?
Yeah, this is, well, I think His Excellency is much better than that. You know,
He's
in
a virtuoso on the...
In Ramadan, we perform it for a wake-up for sahur.
Sorry?
There is drama during Ramadan. We do it after midnight to awake the people in neighborhood in sahur.
We use this to wake them up in the old times.
Something like that.
In the old times.
And then you have the interval, and he goes on the streets.
He's a virtuoso on the daf.
Is virtuoso?
Would you like to
No,
do
I don't.
another number?
Thank you.
Well, this seems to be the right time as we are celebrating, as
We are in
some of
Ramadan,
you are
yeah. We are
observing
in
Ramadan.
yeah.
Anyway, it's been great conversation. Thank you so much, Ambassador Haq from Pakistan, Ambassador Mahdawi from Palestine, and Ambassador Mustafa from Syria.
It was our pleasure, Adam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
With that, we come to the end of this special edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin, coming to you from Beijing. As always, you can join me on Facebook or Twitter using the handle Liu Xin in Beijing. Thanks for watching. You've got The Point.